Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared Leary, and I'm going to be drumming this morning. I've been playing the drums for well over 20 years. I have a PhD in music education, but I still have plenty of stuff to work on. So hopefully my background in music education and drumming will help you getting better at your diddles. So we're going to be working on some of the free exercises, resources, and whatnot on my website, which I'll show you here in a second. But I realized I didn't check the audio levels. Make sure everything was good. I don't want this mic in particular to be too loud, because then all you're going to hear is thunderclaps from the drums when we start playing. And cool, we're at the appropriate volume. Sweet! Alright, so we're going to be working on the exercises right here on my website, jaredoleary.com/drum. Over 1,500 hours of free play-along content. Bunch of chop stuff, bunch of limb independence work, over 500 grid variations, bunch of technique stuff, and some marching bass drum exercises, which the 6-drum stuff should come out, I think, on Saturday or Sunday. One of those days. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited for it. Okay, so we are going to warm up, and then I'm going to do a stretch and massage routine, and then I'm going to refine diddles. Last time I got up to 55 for the diddle timing exercise, which is this one. And today we're going to go faster. We'll go one click at a time, 1 BPM at a time, just to slowly improve. Okay, so I want to warm up just to get the hands flowing and whatnot. And I'm actually going to do a roll exercise. So we'll do, it's one of my favorite ones. It's Rodeo. This is a variation of gallop. Oh, you'll see why this is zoomed in here in a moment. Okay. Maybe that's going to be too annoying if I have it that zoomed in. I don't know. Alright, let's do this at a nice leisurely 80, and then we're going to go up by 20 or something. Alright. So this is an extended, longer version of Gallop. I called Rodeo. This kind of has a almost mirrored vibe, where it's kind of the second half is the opposite of the first half. So it's a good exercise to just kind of warm up some diddles, get your rolls going. forward. Boop. Make sure that's not hitting. All right, let's go to 110. Just trying to get the blood flowing, and then I'm going to stretch massage once, things are moving. And then we're going to play this faster than I should. Then I got a couple of questions on YouTube that I'll answer. Alright, let's do 120, and then I'll stretch a massage. Where is it? There be ye. A little late. Slow down. All right. We're going to stretch massage now. So we hold our sticks like this. And then you pull in, and you go back into underhand grip, and you follow with the other one. This is a good stretch. I highly recommend it. Nintendo, don't sue me, please. Thank you. I like your jams. All right. If you do traditional, hold her here. Hold her here. How's her back?
It worked.
Good.
Check out the pump.
The pump. All right. So yeah, if you do traditional, just hold it here and then hold the other side as well. That just kind of helps loosen things up. Now I'm going to stretch right here. And you could do it one at a time like this. You could do it on your pad like this, like I did yesterday. But I'm going to do what I did 2 days ago, where I do it on the wall. The lower you go, the deeper your stretch. Just don't put your weight all the way into it because you don't want to rip stuff. Showing off my booty.
You want to try that too?
Oh, yeah. All right, now we're going to stretch the top side right here. So we could do like this, one at a time. You could do it on your pad. You could even do it on your legs if you wanted to. Or you could do it on the wall. And the higher you go, the deeper the stretch. So I'm going to do this one. Don't put all your weight into it. Just realized that the bass drum was pushing the floor tom, so it was only on like 2 legs. It's gonna fall. Okay, so now we're stretching thumb to thumb. So we're doing both fingers simultaneously. Itchy nose. And then switch index. Woo. Needed that for this one. Minnie's got like 4 toys on top of her doggo bed. It's a 2-story little doggo fort that I built for her so she can look out the window. She likes to take her toys up there. 3 squirrels and 1 little froggy. All right, so we've stretched. Now we're going to massage. So I'm doing the thumb on top and the fingers underneath. Really trying to loosen things up. Oh, yeah. Itchy nose. Now kind of switch so that the hand's just on top, overhand grip. Although now that I think about it, is it overhand because the hand is over, or is it overhand because the bar is over the hand? Huh. Stretch thoughts with Jared. Oh. Sore. All right. Now we're going to massage the back of the hand with the fingers, and the thumb's going to massage the palm. Again, do this every single time you drum, even on days off where you're not drumming. It just helps. Massage from base to tip of the fingers. Love the lighting difference in these two cameras for my skin. One of them I look like a ghost. The other one I look a little bit more like a squash. Yellow squash, not an Italian squash. Massage with the other hand. Okay, my right hand feels okay. So my left hand feels tight. We'll see how we do today, folks. Not really playing anything too fast. Well, I'm about to, but nothing too rough. Okay. Let's go back to here. Now we're going to play through this faster. We're going to intentionally find the breaking point. So I'm going to go to 130. And we go there. All right, let's try 140. Went too far. I need to stretch out my legs. Yeah, it was a mental mistake on the very first line, so it wasn't like physically couldn't do it. I was just thinking about my workout this morning. I was like, I didn't stretch my legs. Whoops. I should have done that. All right. 150. We'll see if this is the breaking point. Hey, I survived. Woohoo! All right, so we're going to attempt it at 160. I don't know about this. This is the fastest it can go. Okay. Rewind it a little bit. Get myself some water. Because I'm about to spontaneously combust. Okay. I'm trying to find the breaking point. Just for fun. I do this with every time after I warm up, just to push my brains and hands to think, play a little bit faster. Right before I'm going to just like slow diddles down and go all the way down to 40. So Stay tuned for that in a moment. Well, after I actually answer 2 questions. Here we go. Slowed down on the first line and the last line. That was definitely pushing my limits. It was fun though. I liked it. Let's go back. Okay. Let's talk here. I had somebody ask me a question on a stream that I did yesterday where I totally had myself playing tenors. All right, so the question is, how would you explain the usage of the back fingers in drumming to beginner? And does the answer change depending on the person's experience, such as wording and detail, or is it pretty universal? Hope this makes sense. Me and my girlfriend have been teaching each other our own instruments, and the idea of explaining the back fingers stumped me despite me being able to, I think, effectively use them in drumming. Great question. Actually, a couple little questions there. So let me address the first one in terms of like universality in terms of how I respond. So I've worked with every single grade, kindergarten through doctoral students, so no gaps in between that. Some of it has been full-time, others have been like part-time. I taught high school for a decade, etc. And then like privately I've taught like since 2003, so 20 years. Quite a range of students in there. The way that I work with a kindergarten student is very different than the way I work with like master's and doctoral students, because it's just like comprehension levels are completely different. So to answer that first question, I completely change how I respond to things depending on who I'm talking to and like their experience level, etc. So even if they are like a doctoral student, I've had many doctoral students who didn't understand drumming, but were getting a PhD in music education. And so the way that I spoke to them was very different than somebody who was also a percussionist, who is like performing at that level, etc. Okay, so the answers vary depending on what's going on there. So you may see some of the videos out there where it's like 5 levels of like music theory, like explaining music theory in 5 ways or something like that. And so they'll like explain like chord progressions to like a kindergarten student, to like a middle school, a high school, undergrad, master's, and then like a doctoral student. So like a range of different responses, even though that was 6 different that I gave you instead of 5, but a range of different responses across that continuum. So what I would say for somebody who is like new to drumming is I would say to actually focus on the wrist. So whenever I am playing anything, I am basically just using the wrist. That's like 90% of what I am doing. Let me show you. So my technique involves holding the stick and focusing on this wrist bend, this kind of wrist motion. So how I hold my stick is going to kind of like be impacted by the wrist kind of motion that I'm going for. I'm not using a finger technique, like a French technique where your wrist stays still and you play like this. That will not give you a fuller sound. It will give you a faster sound, etc. So I personally prefer a fuller sound and having more relaxed approach. So when I'm holding the stick, I am not squeezing the stick, because if I do that, I can't bend my wrist, as opposed to if I let go of my fingers, then I can start flopping it and then go like this. Okay, so mainly just using wrist. Your fingers are just basically barely holding on to the stick and just allowing your wrist to be able to move. When I'm doing this, I use what's called a triangle fulcrum. Oh, there's Minnie. Hi, Minnie. Triangle fulcrum is basically so that you have 1, 2, 3 fingers as the main point of contact on the stick, and these 2 fingers just kind of hang out, give some space, give a little bit of control, etc. Okay, so that's kind of a little more detail than I would give like a beginner person. Beginner person, I just say use your wrist, make it so that your wrist gets floppy like this, as opposed to using your arm like that. The next level that I would talk about is the triangle fulcrum, so talk about like how you would hold on to the stick, etc. The next level from that would be to talk about like how you want to make the stick resonate and have some space. And actually, if you go here on my website, if you scroll past all this stuff and go into here, there's a video that it says, what does relaxed drumming technique sound like? If you check that out, it kind of talks about how it sounds. Henry, I actually am going to be talking about traditional here in a second, so good question. Okay, so when doing this with the fingers, trying to make it so that there is space in the hands so that way the stick can vibrate. Check out that video that I just pointed out on my website for some more information on what I mean by like the sticks vibrating. I would demonstrate it here, but I had to up the gain on my mic on there so that way you could actually hear the stick resonate when I was playing versus like holding onto it and death gripping it, etc. The next level of like how I'd respond to somebody when talking about to use finger or not to use finger is talking about different types of techniques. So I mentioned I used a wrist approach to the technique, but there are techniques where it's like finger French, where you're using like a thumb up approach. A lot of tenor players will use this, and you are mainly using the fingers. Some will even do it like this, where your wrist does not move at all, and you are just using your fingers. So I talk about the affordances and constraints of why you would do one over the other, but the final layer of like complexity that I might get into with students, and this would be for much more advanced students, is talking about when to combine or utilize multiple approaches for what you're doing. So I mentioned earlier that 90% of my technique is using wrists. So most of what I'm doing whenever I'm playing, I'm using all wrists. Whenever I'm playing that is all just me knocking and moving like this. However, when I'm like really trying to get into some of the faster techniques, like those with 3 strokes, like if I'm going at that speed, it's not a lot of wrists as much as it is controlling rebound. So we need to be able to learn how to control the rebound. But then sometimes when doing a really fast like sticking pattern, like those are paradiddles with an accent, then I'm utilizing some finger in there to get those like faster notes in there. But the majority of what I'm doing is focusing on the wrist. So hopefully this kind of like answers your question that you had, which was here, which is about talking about back fingers. So for me, they're there for control and to give some space. And you're trying to make it so that you're playing as relaxed as possible whenever you're doing this, whenever you're working on your technique. And then when you get really, 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 really fast, then you can start using some of the finger. But that's my approach. There are many different ways that you can play. I've been taught by some really good percussionists. Like I got a couple of lessons from Jeff Queen, who won like I&E and PASIC, etc. Snare solo competition was in the Broadway performance Blast. He was one of the snare soloists, etc. So like the way that he approaches it is different than some of the other instructors that I've had over time and people that I've studied with privately. Okay, so hopefully that answers like the question about back fingers, also about like how to kind of like change what you're talking about depending on who you're speaking to. So like a beginner player, I'd talk, hey, just use wrist only. And then for an intermediate, I'd say, all right, let's focus on this triangle fulcrum. And then, okay, why would you do this technique over that technique? And then it would be, okay, how do you combine these different techniques? So like that's kind of like the scale from beginner to more advanced percussionist. Let's talk about another question here.
In standard, you...
Cool. Hi, Charlie. Why is Charlie here? That's not at all what it's supposed to be on. Moist Critical is quite entertaining. Highly inappropriate, too. Okay, so here's another question that we have here. Question. I was a tenor player and only just started getting serious with playing traditional. When rolling or using the rebound for multiple strokes on the left, I find I am losing control of the stick. Should my cuticle on my ring finger leave the stick ever so slightly in that scenario? Excellent question. So, Chris, I'm kind of the opposite of you. So I actually marched snare for several years. I was in drum corps. Actually, I have a tattoo of the corps on my arm for 5 years. And then I got into a car accident my 5th year, and I couldn't march years 6 or 7. That would have been on snare. So that was my main instrument and kind of my passion. Like my gamer tag was like snare with like underscores in between each of the letters because I was like really into marching snare. You'll see me doing a lot more traditional, and I only play match grip or tenors, and I only do match grip now, but everything that I marched was actually on snare. So let's talk about what this like actually looks like. So snare drum, the way that people talk about this is they often talk about, blurry, how you want to have your thumb lined up with right here with your forearm. You're just kind of letting your stick rest inside of here. Your fingers go on top, so you're making a lowercase t with your thumb and index. So we don't want a capital T. We want it like this. So it allows you to hold it here. Your ring finger is going to kind of support right here, curve around a little bit. You don't want it straight. Now, the reason why you don't want it straight is because if you actually do this, if you point, you can actually feel, and you can sort of see it right here, that you tighten up along here as soon as you point that finger. See, it's even tightening up down here. So we don't want that. So whenever you're using the middle finger, it kind of rests right there. Now, to get to your question, it rests on the cuticle. For those of you who don't know, the cuticle is that like little part where like the fingernail and the ring finger or the finger like meet. And when you're first learning snare, it hurts like a lot. Like you're just banging this all day long if you're practicing a lot, and you'll get like bruise, blisters, maybe even bleed, etc. So give yourself breaks. Eventually you'll be able to drum all day, but not right away. And then the pinky finger is just kind of like hugging the ring finger right here. So it's just kind of hanging out right there. Now, to get to your question, when doing the motion, so with traditional grip, got to get lower for this because you want to have your arm parallel and you don't want it to be like raised up like this. Okay. So traditional grip, it's all about that rotation of the wrist. So when I got those couple of lessons with Jeff Clean, one of the things he talked about is he would walk around with a doorknob that had like resistance on it, like it would spring back to the location when you let go of it. And he'd walk around and just practice that rotation so he could work on that rotation muscles or set of muscles that allow you to do this fast. So actually in high school and even during my undergrad, like in rehearsals and in between classes, I would just walk around with a doorknob like this. And let me tell you, that did just was real great for, you know, like the social thing. People thought I was weird, but I was like, well, you know what? I'm getting better, so don't care. Anyways, so it's all about this rotary motion. That's where all of your accents, your taps, etc. What your fingers do is mostly irrelevant. You're not sitting there and like fingering in these notes and then like finger right here. I've heard some people say that they do that, but when you're playing like rudimental, that's like very rarely what you're doing. You're not going to get power that way. You're going to get real inconsistencies with your hands, etc., etc. So it's all about that rotation, not about what your fingers are doing. You're not doing this. These two fingers, your ring and your pinky, are just there for support and to kind of like help guide the stick so that way it doesn't swing back and forth like that. So we don't want it to like fall off like this. So if you are playing and you pull your fingers off like this, it's going to give you less support and it's going to actually make it so that you tighten up. So if you pull your fingers off, if you're holding your sticks like this, and then you pull off like this, you're going to get a lot of tension right down in here, and that is bad. If, however, like you mentioned in here, you said ever so slightly have the fingers leave the stick, that is completely fine. Why? Because it's making it so that you have space in here for the stick to be able to vibrate. Again, going back to the video that I mentioned on my website, whoops, this one. So the what does relaxed drumming technique sound like? If you listen to what that sounds like between like a pinched off approach and when you give some space, it's completely different in terms of the sound quality of the drum, of the stick, etc. So check out that video because again, I'm able to like enhance the gain so you can actually hear the vibration of it. Like I can hear my stick vibrating right now and I can feel it. It's like tickling my hand. But when I pinch it off and hold my sticks together, then I lose that vibration and I lose that humming sound, etc. Okay, so Henry, great question on drum kit. When you are using really light sticks, like these are the Jack DeJohnette's compared to the Hardeman hammers, which are like extra heavy sticks, you could use some finger on here. So I do know some like jazz drummers in particular who will actually play with a finger technique, which is not the technique that I use. And so they'll use finger here and they'll use finger right there. You could again, get everything that you need with the rotation, or you combine it with some finger technique with the drum kit. The problem is if like you're doing this for rudimental, it gets really inconsistent in terms of like everybody's moving like different smaller muscle groups, and it's going to create an inconsistent sound across like the snare line, which is why like I always just focus on wrist rotation or the wrist moving up and down like this with your match grip, and then this is just primarily the wrist rotation. So whenever doing on drum kit, assuming you're the only one playing on drum kit, yeah, it's totally fine to use this. So my technique works for me because of the things that I tend to play the most, but it is not the only way that I would play. So if I'm playing on like mallets or like marimba or like vibraphone or multi-percussion setup, etc., I'm going to use different techniques for different scenarios. Like when I'm playing on tenors, I'm always keeping my wrist in the same position and moving my arm so that way I can get a consistent sound. However, if I'm playing on like marimba or multi-percussion stuff, or sometimes even drum kit, I might use a Julie Spencer technique where you actually hold your stick like this and then you flick your wrist to get the back side of the mallet or the stick hitting to do a quick little motion like this. You can go da-da, da-da, da-da. So here to here. But if I'm doing on tenors, I wouldn't do that, etc. So there's many ways to play. There's not one right or wrong way to do this. So I highly recommend learning as many different approaches as possible and then find ways to kind of combine them into one. Which gets back to the previous question that I had about like, how do you talk about technique? Is it different for a beginner and an advanced player? It's completely different along that continuum. I'm getting more advanced and more in the weeds here than I normally would because I'm assuming that you can come back to this and you can like pick it apart and like re-listen to it. But if I was talking to like a fifth grader who was just learning how to play the drums, I wouldn't even get into all of this stuff. Like I just say, just use your wrist or just focus on rotation. I wouldn't focus on like, yeah, you can use your thumb. Like all that stuff is way more advanced than most people need to worry about. It's only when you get to the advanced levels. But anyways, speaking of getting to the advanced levels, I am going to work specifically on trying to improve my diddle timing. So last time I did this exercise, I was going by ones. And let's make it normal size so it's easier to see. And so I left off at 55 as where I was at for this while refining it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at 40. And then I'll go 45, 50, and then 55, I'll start going by ones. So I'm specifically just trying to refine the timing of my diddles while staying nice and relaxed here. Ugh, itchy nose. So nice and relax. Oh, I totally forgot. I wrote this down even. So when it comes to technique, there are three main things to focus on. One is how does it sound? Two is how does it impact your hands? So how do your hands feel while doing that? And then three is like what is the impact of that technique on your speed and like what you're trying to play and whatnot. So the first one, how does it sound? We want to make it so that you have a nice resonant sound, most likely, with whatever it is you're playing, unless you're playing like staccato or something like that. You want to make it so that you get the best possible sound out of your drum that you can. Okay, so what technique is going to do that? Well, if you're pinching off your stick, then it's going to make it sound nice and closed. But if you're more relaxed, then it's going to be a much more fuller open sound. So that's why I tend to focus on that when I'm playing this. But the other thing that you have to focus on is, okay, but how does this impact your hand? You want to be able to play for a lifetime, most likely, as opposed to only for like a few years. So you want to make sure that you are not playing in a way that is going to give you like tendonitis, carpal tunnel, etc. Which is why I do like the stretch and massage stuff at the start of these streams, because I had some issues with my hands before I fixed my technique. And the last thing is you want to think about the how the technique kind of impacts the speed or your hands. So you want to make sure that you are able to play at the speeds you want to be able to play at, and you're not just so relaxed that you can only play stuff at like 80 beats per minute, but you can like use your technique, use your fingers, use your wrist, etc. to be able to play it faster. So those are three main things to kind of look out for when you're doing this. And actually, I should probably put it in order of like my preference. Focus on how it impacts your hands. How do your hands feel? Focus on how it sounds, and then you can focus on how it impacts your speed. So those are three things to really think about with your technique. And again, learn from many different people because there's many different ways that you can play. My technique is a combination of many different individuals who are percussionists. Let's go back to here. Lots of talking today. Good questions, though. In the chat and on the YouTube comments. Thank you. Wasn't paying attention. Woo, that was bad. Minnie just ran another room. She's such a goof in the morning. She's got all kinds of energy. Minnie's my dog. All right, let's go up by 5. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. No, way too far. All right, so not great, but that was mainly just like mental. I was like mentally refining my answers to those questions in my head. I was like, I should have said this. Oh well. Rush the second note of that diddle. Now we got a 50, and then when I get to 55, then I'm going to start, going by ones, just to refine it, because that's where I left off. Last time I was working on diddle timing, it was like a week or so ago. This is the grind, really slowing things down. All right. Now 55. But first, water. Oh, Minnie, you dropped a squirrel. You just dropped. It's a squirrel. He's cute. Whoop. It fell off her two-story doggo bed. She couldn't get to it. So that's why she was coming over. Man down, Minnie. Oh, now she's squeaking with it. All right. 55. Now we're going by ones. Onesies. Hey! How you doing, Kung? Sorry, my thing was covering up the window. So I'm just now seeing it. I had a little notepad up. So I was like, oh, I need to move that. It's covering up my chat. Mm-hmm. 56. I don't know why I think of a waltz on those tap-offs. All right. Okay. Let's see. How long would it take to get through another 5 reps? So from 55. Yeah, it's so too long. Okay, so I'm going to chop out. So if we go back to here, this is my website, jaredoleary.com/drum. It's linked at the top of the screen. There's over 1,500 hours of free drumming content on here. Over 500 grid variations, which I highly recommend working through. All of the live streams, and all of the live streams actually include timestamps in here. So you can actually see what I was working on for different stuff, each one of these. Not on the one that I've done right now, because I need to go in and add that after this finishes. But, yeah, and there's a bunch of technique stuff. I'm going to chop out. So I did a lot of diddle stuff today, so we're actually going to do a chop thing instead of diddles. Whoops, all the way at the TP top. And I want to chop out with, what do I want to play this morning? Yesterday I did this one. Let's do flam 5s with float drags. This is a fun one. And we're going to start off at a nice leisurely 140. And then we're going to go as fast as I possibly can until my arms fall off. Stay tuned, folks. Ew, forgot what I was playing for a second there. That wasn't the best. That's okay. We're gonna go by 5s until I crash and burn. I'm guessing 165 will probably be it. We'll find out momentarily. Why is my nose so itchy in the morning? It didn't stop. Don't stop believing. Minnie's just laying with her head drooping out off her doggo bed, just looking at me. Cute dog. Mm-hmm. 155. Here we go. Whee! It's quick, especially with these heavy sticks. They're like 44% heavier than my normal sticks that are double taped. How do I know? Because I actually measured it one day. Because I'm a nerd. All right, 160. Oh. I think I could do 165. Famous last words. Boop. Here we go, here we go, here we go, All right, let's try it, folks. 170. It hasn't completely fallen apart yet. It's certainly a bit of a struggle. It's not easy, but it's not like impossible. It's interesting, it's the flam taps. Coming out of them into the flam fives, kind of messing me up right from here to right here. I'm surprised. That is not what I guessed would have been the weird part. something to work on. Whew. I think I can do it. I think I can. I think I can. The little drummer that could. Ew. We found it. All right, let's go back. Oh, there's a few more variations of that exercise, by the way. Speaking of exercises, there's over 1,500 hours of free drumming content. JaredO'Leary.com/drum. All that chop stuff, all this limb independence stuff, chart work, 500 plus grid variations, all my live streams, bunch of tips on how to get better, and a ton of technique exercises, marching bass stuff, etc., 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 etc. If you're interested in what sticks I'm using, what kind of pad, all that stuff, if you go to /gear, or if you click here, gear I use, or go up to here, gear I use, you can check that out, and just go to percussion. Whoop, that's the stuff I'm using, all the equipment I've got, etc. And if you're interested in the gaming stuff, I create a bunch of gaming content. I also create a bunch of free computer science education resources and whatnot here. So check it out. Lots of content, because I'm a nerd, and this is my job. But thank you, everybody who stopped by on Twitch and on YouTube. And thank you, anyone who's watching this after the fact. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope those questions were answered. But if not, let me know. And if you got a question that you would like me to kind of answer or talk about on a future one, just leave it on any one of the social medias that I am on. They're all listed here. You can just post it anywhere, and I will respond to it in an upcoming stream. Which, by the way, if you're curious, when am I streaming next, just go to /schedule, or when is my next stream, and then you can see these are all Eastern times, and you'll see that I am going to be streaming. The last one will be on the 10th, and then I'm taking a 10-day break. Woo! That's a while. So stay tuned. But thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.